I'm recording on, there you go. I never
Nice.
did it before, so don't expect great
Fantastic. You
visuals
push the
and
button.
sound effects and stuff like that.
It's for real. Miles did it. Well, it's nice to see you. I wish we could see you live in the old days. Some of you might remember we used to go see our pals over at Nutmeg or CCH. They'd give us space, and I guess it was Nutmeg. Well, maybe I don't remember who it was, but anyway, we used to train live, and that was fun. But we're virtual. Hopefully one day again we'll be live. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm Liz Isaacs, joined by Miles Winsek, and we are here to talk about renewal applications. It's a little odd, and I'm going to say this a couple times as we're training. The eSNAPS is not open yet. So if you've all been following the HUD saga, they did release the NOFO. However, they have not opened eSNAPS, but they've also said that no matter what, it's going to be due September 30th. So we wanted to get moving. We wanted to get moving.
So we'll restart.
If folks would just make sure you're muted if you're
Okay.
if you're not speaking or not asking a question, please mute yourself. So anyway, I'm going to remind you that we're going to continue to send, as we always do, communication out to folks. As soon as eSNAPS is out, we will make sure if anything is different, we highlight it for you. Our sense is it should look, hopefully it'll look the same. It stayed the same. The NOFO doesn't seem to indicate there'll be any crazy changes. So we just thought we wanted to get everybody focused, do this training. And again, we'll keep reaching out to folks to communicate what, if any, changes happen. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to just make sure you know why you're here. We're going to highlight a couple important things. For some of you, this will be, you know, you've heard it before, and that's fine. And jump in if we start making stuff up. And for some of you, this may be brand new. So for the folks who are brand new, this will be recorded. Miles just recorded it. If you want to watch it again, you can watch it again. Hopefully the slides can serve as a guide for you. Some of the slides you'll see that Miles is going through, you know, aren't really exciting slides. They're just screenshots of what you're going to see. So that serve as a guide moving ahead when you're in eSNAPS, if you have two screens, if you want to print it out old school, whatever you want to do. But this is what we're going to be talking about today. And I should say, put questions in the chat box, put your hand up, ask a question. We want you guys to get everything you can out of this. I'm sorry, I have to move. I have too many screens open. Give me one sec. Okay. So what do we want to do today? We want to make sure that you know how to name your project. And we'll talk a little bit about this in a minute. We want to make sure that you're getting boss emails. Every year, someone tells me, I usually get two stories. One is that they're not getting emails at all. They're not signed up. And the other is that it's maybe going to their junk folder. So check your junk folder if that's where it's going. And if you aren't on, if you're not getting boss emails, I have a slide to tell you how to make sure you do that. We're just doing refreshers. It may be new for some folks to talk about the applicant profile. In the application section, we're going to keep saying it's a really tight timeline this year and apologize. But we're going to ask you to do these applications really quickly as soon as they're out on eSNAPS. And then we'll give you some resources for questions. All right. So we like to do this. We're all in this together. Our goal is that you get applications in. Never want to see somebody not get it in. We can be sort of like uptight and rigid sometimes, I think people think, but we don't want anyone to not get their application in on time. This is how you get your funding from HUD. We want to make it happen. So we're here to lend a hand. Okay. So I'm sorry to move this over. This is really important. So in some cases, Miles can hop in or let me know in how many cases your project may not be called what it was called last year. In some cases, there were grant changes. It doesn't matter. Grant number changes. What matters is that when you go in to set up your project, that you use the name. So the red 2022 renewal project list, which is also on the BOSS website. So this takes you there, that you use the name that is listed there. It's really, really, really important because for numerous reasons, we need to know now what your project is called. We have to put con plan certifications together. We have to match a DIW. There's a lot going on. So it sounds small, but it's really an important thing. Please, please call your project what's on this list. And again, that's a live link and it lives on the BOSS website. If you're not getting BOSS emails or you'd like to get BOSS emails, that's a live link also. In the old days, you would shoot me a note and say, put me on a list. We don't do that anymore because we want you to choose which lists you want to be on. Click on that and you can choose, do I want to get grantee emails? Do I want to get steering committee emails? And you sign yourself up. And so please pass that along to colleagues because at least I would say once a week, someone asks me to be put on a list and then I send this off to them. So make sure you're getting BOSS emails because that's how we're going to tell you about all the important stuff that's happening and going to happen. Keep moving stuff. So what is eSnaps? We're just going to very basic. And if anyone is totally brand new, sorry. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with my, so eSnaps is where all the application forms live. We refer to it all the time. This is where you're going to put your HUD application in. It's where we do our application to HUD. So for anyone who didn't know what it was, now you know. If you're new to eSnaps, and so only if you're new, so if you've been doing this for years, you can take a rest for a minute here. You have to create a profile. Again, I'm not going to go through each of the messages here, but use this as a guide if you are new to eSnaps and need to sign up. And again, same thing, if you're getting started, this is how you are going to find the applicants and the other information you need. This is important. So, and most of you have this, we know a few of you don't do this and that's fine, but we really encourage you to add miles as a user. He will not abuse this at all, but it's really helpful if you're having issues getting into eSnaps, if you're asking him to help out and change something. We've had like where everyone's on vacation and a change has to be made. It's really helpful to have him. He never goes in unless you know that he's going in. And then this shows you how to add miles as a user. Miles, are you jumping in here? Are you starting the applicant
profile?
Okay,
so this is the applicant profile. It's pretty much because of the instructions hasn't come out. So we're going to assume everything stayed the same, minus one thing that you guys did in December, January, where you had to put the new identifier. But here you know, for those who are not too familiar with the applicant profile, you have to hit the applicants there, opens up the screen, and then to make edits, you hit the orange document folder button, which is circled, which opens up the applicant profile. Liz, you could flip the slide, please. So then once it's open, you're going to see this page. You want to get, well, you won't see the summary page initially, but you want to get to the summary number 6. So you want to submission summary page that opens up this, and you want to press the edit button to be able to edit these various different documents and whatnot. Then once in here, the 288 form, if you, as an agency, are you requesting more than $200,000? If that's a yes, you change that, put that as a yes. If it's a no, then most of the form will be just finished once you enter no. Once you enter yes, it'll open up another 2 sections of the 2880 form, which is the first part. Yeah, you can flip. When part 2, you put in all the funding that you're receiving to make this project work completely. So you get DEMAS funding, you get fundraising, the clients give you rental assistance money that covers some of it or whatever. That goes here, and you know, so you can say what the assistance, where it comes from, what its uses, and so on and so forth. And part 3, which we don't have a slide, is if you have any contractors slash subrecipients. Slide. I mean, part 3 is how much money they are receiving out of all your grants. typically this DEMIS and DOH has that Part 3 stuff, but I know some agencies might be applying for new money, and that will have to affect this as well. They're putting sub-recipients. That's it on that. Then if all the other documents in your applicant profile are the same, there's nothing to change, that's great. Then you just have to go back and you just press the complete button. If there's anything else that changed, like the code of conduct, for whatever reason, you updated it and it's still from 2017, now you have a 22 version or 21 version, just upload a new one, and then you'll be done. If the alternate contacts or what the representatives change, please change that, because they'll be sending emails to or trying to contact someone who's not there anymore. All right, next slide, please. All right, you flip back by a second. For creating new applications, we have 2 or 3, depending. If you're just doing the regular COC renewal application, you have to go to the funding opportunities registrations. Once you click this, this opens up this page, and then you have to click on that document with a check mark on it to open up, to approve that you're doing a renewal project. If you're doing YHCP, it's the same thing. So the YHCP renewal project, or if you're doing a YHCP replacement, you do the replacement, not the renewal. If you're doing both, you click on all these. So you'll be opening the funding sources for these projects if you're doing any of these type of projects. You would not be doing the first one, COC planning. And you're not doing UFA, cost. Those 2 are not for you, so just ignore those. If you're not doing any new projects, you can ignore those as well. Okay, next slide. To create a new project. So once you get in here, you're gonna see all your original projects that you have here. It won't show you anything new. Obviously you have to hit the projects tab. So then you'll have to go into the funding opportunity name drop-down menu and filter for the type of project that you want to do. It'll probably show you a bunch of them, and then you just pick the, say in this case, renewal project application FY 2022. And then it will open up a blank because there's nothing to be here. In first case 60, and then you hit that document with the plus sign, and then it opens up the a screen to import and it will open up a screen to either to import the information, which I think it should be working for all the projects now. I know in the past some projects didn't work, but it should be able to import your previous application. So then, and you put the name. I don't think we have a slide for yeah, we do have a slide. I wasn't 100% sure. You put the name that we have on the spreadsheet if for all the renewal projects. If you're doing a new project, you have to work with us, and we'll come up with a name for the projects. But for now, for the renewal projects, we already have a list developed, as Liz said, and you just put that name in here. You import based on the last year's application name. Sometimes the names could be completely different because whatnot, and then you hit save or add another if you have multiples, or just save and back, and then you're pretty much done. And then this will lead you to the next.
Yeah, Miles, I'm just jumping in. I apologize. So I'm going to remove those notes because we are, you don't follow that. We're telling you what the name of the project is. And someone actually just asked that in the chat. So if you go to the link, you can find your project and make sure you're naming it that. And I'll remove these notes so there's no confusion. So you already are going to know what your project is going to be called.
Yeah, and now your project names are pretty much the same as last year.
That should work for a damn auction house.
Say it again, sorry.
Oh, no, I think somebody just wasn't muted, maybe.
Oh, okay. Well, the names are pretty much the same. Some of it, the grant IDs changed because the new grants have a new grant ID. So I changed that. And some grants might have had, they always put the fiscal year that this applies to. I changed it for that. So on the most part, it's pretty straightforward from last year to this year, just some minute changes. Okay, typically, this is the first, you have to answer all these questions for the beginning part of the application. So, in the application types and all, the various different the documents, and most of them is pretty much you confirming, you're just checking the mark that I'm certifying this, I'm certifying that. So it's pretty straightforward. If there's congressional districts that have to be fixed, that's the page where you also have to change the operating date. But the congressional districts, if they're incorrect, because you have grant mergers and the mergers only pick, that one's going to be a little more complicated with the mergers. But then you might have to change the data because the merger might be 2 congressional districts where the original application was just 1. So make sure you fix that. We didn't have too many mergers, but in cases of mergers, the data is not going to import properly. So I'm going to import 1 of the applications, not the 2 or 3 or whatever, and how many applications got merged. Everything else is, you're just checking the PIN numbers if they're correct, and that's based on the other document that you're gonna have. This typically is always correct, so you're just pretty much saying yes and save and go to the next page. As I mentioned about the congressional districts, you're just making sure this is correct, but make sure the slide is a little out of date. We're using last year's slides actually, because the instructions never came out, so we didn't edit these. The start and end date should be 2023, and the end date is 2024, because this is for next year. There's the rare case of the project starts in January, that'd be 2024 to 2024, but so make sure you update the proposed date to the following year. If you're a new grant, if this is a first-time operation, you might have to change the proposed date to the actual dates that your grant is actually running, because the proposed dates might have been July to June, and you might not start until September for whatever reason, and so you'll have to change the dates accordingly. Other than that, that's about it. Here's typically, as Liz will remind us multiple times later, is if we prefer you not to make really any changes, just do changes that are necessary, usually the budget items, and that will change. But as minimal as possible, because if the housing units and all those things didn't change it, or so they don't need to be checked off. Don't check anything unless you're changing something. If you check something and you accidentally check something, please put in an explanation that, oh, you accidentally checked, let's say 5B, and there were no changes. So the reviewer will know not to, there was no change, nothing to review, and also HUD will know that there was no changes as well, because then they might scrutinize it a little more.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Yeah, so we're at this moment, I don't think we have anyone that is reallocating, so everyone's gonna answer no. If I'm wrong on that, if someone is reallocating, which then you change that to yes. But at this moment, everyone's gonna answer no. If you are making any changes, then you have to change the question 2 to make changes. Otherwise, if you put it as no changes, then most of this document is pretty much done. You just review all the things, and then you might just have to do just the certification, which I don't know why they have this on the no change form. Maybe they fixed that this year, because you always have to certify 7B. So, but I think that's automatically checked off right off from the get-go. So, but anything else, hopefully there's nothing changes. The match may change for some agencies because the grant funding went up. So that's one, that in that case, that does change. And I think because of that, the other 60 might change as well. But hopefully you don't have to change anything, no narratives or anything else. I know some narratives are written in a way it's a yearly thing. I suggest try to rewrite it if you're gonna have to rewrite it more to don't have, where it's not a yearly thing. So yeah, I think we just went through all these. So these are the things, yeah, so the sources and match, they import that, I think, nowadays. So you might not have to change it because it's not a date issue anymore. Check that the match stayed the same, the sources and everything else. You don't have to make a change there. The project details, you might not have to change that as well. The other two, renewal, expansion, and grant, that only depends on if you're doing that. You have to answer those. The recipient performance, I went backwards. That is your APR questions or your audit questions if you have some liens or whatever. Those you always have to answer, but it's not part of the no change form anyway. This is always the thing, I'm just going to mention it, is if you did not fully expend your grant by the time you're doing this application. So the APR is done and you didn't fully expend your grant, please answer that you didn't fully spend the grant and then put an explanation for it. Yeah, we left $400 was, no way to spend $400 by the end of the year or whatever. You just have some explanation for it. And yeah, I think that'd be a red flag if you said no, there was no underspending, and then you had underspending. So, because it's kind of like it's not telling them the truth. All right, next slide. This is only for grants that are consolidating. And yes, I saw a list of merger possibilities. I didn't finish reviewing that. So pretty much you don't have to do an extra grant if they keep the same. So you're just basically saying, this is the application that is this is the individual application that's going to be part of the consolidation. And the second question, is it terminating or survivor? The survivor has more information. It puts all the information of all the grants and the operating dates and the amounts. And the terminating one just says it's terminating, and I don't think it puts the rest of the information. So you don't have to type this all multiple times.
Yeah, we don't have to go through each detail. We just wanted folks to see what it looks like. And if you're going to consolidate grants, please let us know ahead of time. It just helps us in terms of our review process, so we can look out for that. So we've already talked to Demas, we've talked to some other folks, but just shoot us a note if you are looking to consolidate. And I don't think we probably have to go through each of these. We just wanted you to see, again, what it looked like last year. Our assumption is that's what, we know you can consolidate this year. We're not sure if the forms will change, but we wanted you to have a take a look at these.
Yeah, I don't think they'll change because they seem to work fine. So this is the terminating one, you're just telling the surviving thing. So it's pretty, this one's pretty straightforward. We can skip that. So we already explained that. The ones that have project sub-recipients, this also applies for new grants, the same thing. If you're having you have to create sub-recipients in here. There's going to be a little icon with the plus sign. You create them and add them in. In your case, in most cases, you're just going to revise this because the amount might change because the awards change, and you just change the sub-award amount to whatever it belongs to. So Housing First, this is straightforward. This is the answers that everyone should have for Housing First.
Yes. Hopefully everyone's doing this, but yes, you have to. So every year someone also will ask this. If you miss checking a box, which sometimes happens, then you're going to get a no for you're not following Housing First. So just make sure you're checking all your boxes and then you will get a yes.
Yeah. The 3D saying yes doesn't pop until you hit save. So you can't move that. It does that if the answers are correct. So when you see yes, then everything's correct. That one's everyone on PSH is on PSH is dedicated plus. Everyone else doesn't get that question, so this that's only a PSH thing. For 4A, we like everything on the most part be frequent as monthly on the most part, or earlier, bi-weekly, weekly, whatever, daily. As needed is only for things like utility deposits or stuff like that. So
let me jump in here. On this, if like there's one of the boxes you don't like, you don't need to change it. You know, that doesn't need to be a reason to change this section necessarily, because we're going to keep reminding you, it's best to not change anything. You've been funded. HUD wants to continue to fund you. You're not going to lose your funding because you said monthly and not biweekly. So unless there's something egregious that I can't think of for 4A, I wouldn't make changes to this.
Yeah.
But we're just sharing best practices here.
Hi, for this only applies for projects that actually have people housed in a sense. So you have to put the housing types. If you have multiple housing types, you'll have different 4Bs. But you know, if you're not changing your grant, which most grants are not changing, this doesn't change. So you don't have to worry about that. So
Just trying to follow this. This guy should have been an auctioneer.
Right, just make sure if folks can stay muted. I think we have some unmuted folks.
yeah,
Uh,
I don't know
Yeah,
who
but
said that.
Miles, I'm trying to think we do. I think the GIW should be posted to the website. If it isn't, I'll do it right after this.
The GIW only does that for rental assistance projects. So if you are a leasing project, it won't have this information. So that's, you know, it's not, you know, the GIW doesn't give you everything. So it's, you know, you have to depend on the your prior application. So, but if we're not making any changes, yeah, 4B is not going to be one of the things you will change. So
Exactly.
but if you're doing a new application, that'd be, you know, you have to do the different types. Gratefully, renewal projects, unless you're a replacement grant, you don't have to do any budget changes. So pretty much all the budget lines have to correspond to the GIW. That's, you know, so we have no changes here.
Okay.
Whether or not she likes it.
Hey,
So
glad she should be glad that you're doing what you're doing, because
Or
you're
Miles,
doing it
can
with
one
your
of you
hands.
just mute everybody?
Right,
Because
yeah.
we don't need to listen to that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sorry.
sorry.
Liz will have to do that because actually,
You just need to have an access.
I don't know how to do it.
So she's
But I know who it is though.
Right. Are you getting keep going, Miles?
Okay.
Miles, you want to do indirect cost
Yeah, I
rate?
fixed that. Because now I see who it was.
Okay.
But it actually unmuted just for. There we go. The okay, indirect. I'm not going to go in details indirect because there's a special training for this one. There is a but if you're going to go indirect, it's a yes and no. If you're doing the standard 10%, was it de minimis, you could go that way, and there's a whole bunch of rules about it. There's a separate training slides and the whole 9 yards on that. So or you get indirect by the standard way. If you applied for it from the feds and you got some indirect rate, you could apply here to do the indirect rate on all your different categories in your budget.
Yeah, so as Miles mentioned, we did, if you're thinking, what's an indirect rate? This is the first time I'm hearing it, or I've heard it, but I've never understood it. We have trainings on the BOSS website. Hopefully you can find them. In fact, I'll put the links out when we send this recording out to folks. I'll put the link out just so folks can understand better what's going on. We could spend hours talking about indirect cost rate, but it's not that exciting. And we have other ways to share that information with you. So we'll share the information if you're thrown or if there's a change with how your agency is doing the indirect cost rate.
Yeah, and it's actually it's a good idea to think about it because it offsets some of your costs that you can't do normally on HUD.
Exactly. All right.
I think you skipped, you went.
Well, do you want, that was just more on indirect cost
Oh, okay, yeah.
to
Yeah.
talk.
You know, on the most part, the only ones that would change this is the people with actual rent. And last year they were nice. HUD gave us a document that you had to apply the HUD paid rent in the HUD paid rent column. If they do that again this year, hopefully, like anything else, they didn't release anything, they'll release it and then you'll plug those numbers in. So for anyone that's doing actual rent, just hold off on the rental assistance budget for the moment until it's available. If it's not, If we feel it ends up not going to be available, then we'll have to figure out the calculations. And I know that's the pain. Some people call me, some people can figure it out themselves, whatever way is fine. And we'll plug in numbers. The bottom line is the budget has to match the GIW, and that's the bottom line. Doesn't matter if the individual buckets are all over the place. So long as the bottom line matches, HUD is happy.
Great.
Question real quick, Miles, on that, on the actual rents.
Yeah.
As you know, we are small, project-based, 4-unit project-based. We went from fair market rents to actual rents to try to take care of the surplus that we were always having.
Yeah.
Well, now we're running into a deficit on a regular basis, and it will continue to run into a deficit. So can we update the actual rents to a higher amount so that we can, so we're not running into a deficit?
Sadly, no. Once you get into actual rent, you're kind of stuck with the, you are stuck with the actual
Funded
rent.
at the amount that I get funded every year, even though rents are going up and.
Well, one thing about the actual rent, and I'm not going to say it's great, but they do give you a percentage every year that I noticed that every year they give a straight percentage. It took me a long time to figure that out because they don't actually state that anywhere. But let's say they give you like 4%. So they give you a 4% increase over last year's rent. So it's just a straight percentage. They do this for everybody. So your FMR went up 12 and yours you going at 4, it's bad. But if your region only went up 2 FMR percent and you got 4, you actually did better. But overall, actual rent is actually a bad idea. So it's,
Yeah, I kind of wish that we didn't do that now, because now we're gonna run into a deficit every year going forward, and I'm not sure how to rectify that.
The other way to rectify it, which is not a great idea, but I'm not sure if you have, because your grants are old, so in essence that you don't have supported services probably on your grants. The other way was to take away supported service dollars and put it on the rental assistance, put it back FMR, which you have to get approval from HUD, but it's just you're taking away money from one bucket to put it in another.
HUD's already said that we can't switch back to FMRs once we switch to actual rents.
I don't think so. I mean, it's once you went to actual rents, like I said, it's not a good thing.
All right. You got to do match, Miles. I'll let you talk match.
Match, the fund match things. If anyone that, I'll go with leasing. If you have leasing dollars is not part of the match. So you take the leasing dollars out. Everything else in the budget is part of the match. So you have to have 25% match. Typically, most people have Demas money and they use that as the match. Please only put the 25% or roughly around 25%. Don't go too crazy about it. 26 is fine or whatever, but because then they expect that as an overall thing. So if you had issues with the match dollars in reality, for whatever reason, when you're doing 25, you have more playroom. So something like HUD says, this is not a HUD eligible cost that your match did. They take it out, you still have money to offset that. So that's why 25% is the best. Yes, I know if you get FMR increases, actual rent increases, the C19A form, your technical submission form will ask you to re-up your match, but that's worth it for that case. Typically, we don't want in-kind, where we always, in-kind is a little more complicated. If everyone's cash, just better. Okay, so this is the summary page. The summary page, some of it gets imported from all the other pages. You don't have to do anything. If you have lease structures, which I don't think anyone has lease structures. If you do, maybe I forgot one, or I'm not familiar with the YHCP, so I'm not sure if they have it. If you have lease structures, you have to plug in the amount here. Support service, all you have to do now is support service operating HMIS and admin. You just plug a number here. There's no details. It's nice. And these have to match the GIW, so it's pretty straightforward, just putting numbers in. attachments. This is only for projects with subrecipients that are nonprofit. You have to put in their nonprofit document, which I don't know if that might you have to reattach. I'm not sure if the attachments are there all the time. So if it's there, it's great. If it's not, you have to attach it. If you do have a third-party in-kind match commitment, which I think was rare last year, you'll have to attach that. That'll be a little more work. I don't think anyone has replacement reserve, but if you do, you have to attach the document. And if you have a federal approved indirect cost rate, which is nice, and some people do have it now, do attach that as well, because the rate changes every certain amount of years. I think it's 3 years now. So maybe the rate that you had before is not the approved rate anymore. It's a different rate going forward. All right, Liz is going to do the YHDPs.
I'm going to talk about YHDPs and give Miles a break. I'm gonna let me pause. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm like trigger happy on the thing. Let me pause for a second to see if there are questions before I start talking about YHDP. I see.
Yeah, Liz only gave me about 30 seconds per slide. So
I know I told you I'd talk really fast. So you did a good job talking fast, Miles. Someone's asking about a conditional letter as well as an environmental and matching letter. I think you're talking about during the time of technical submission. So you don't need that at time of application, but let's talk offline. Give me a ring or shoot one of us an email, and we're happy to help you with, I know Miles was helping some folks with any technical submission issues, people who are actually trying to get their grants, last year's grants now. Let me pause just really quickly, jump in, ask a question if you have any eSnaps issues. Okay, so I'm going to talk really briefly about YHDP. HUD last year offered what they called replacement projects. So let me start from the beginning. If you don't have a YHDP project, this doesn't relate to you. You can multitask or take a rest for the next couple of minutes while I talk about this. And again, I'm keep doing my caveat only because eSnaps could look different this year. So this is based on what was going on last year with the replacement projects. So HUD allowed last year, and again, allowing this year for you to replace part or your entire project. It allows for a lot of interesting and innovative ways to spend your money. So as you go through this, again, only if you're a YHDP grantee or subrecipient, take a look and see if any of these activities sound like they might make sense for you to think about. And I'm going to say this at the end, but I'll say it now too. If as you're looking at this, you have questions, you're interested in doing this, reach out to us right away because it's helpful for us to know. And also, ultimately, it's going to be Katie Duran at DOH who's going to kind of make decisions on this, and we'll put our heads together. But there are some interesting and creative ways to spend your money here. So as I flip through this, see if anything looks interesting, things that you couldn't do in the past. Now they're allowing you to do. You can have leases for a minimum term of 1 month, which wasn't allowed before, and you can use administrative funds for all kind of interesting things that you couldn't in the past. I'm going to just keep flipping through these. So you can employ youth receiving services. You can change up habitability how you do document habitability standards. You can provide moving expenses more than once. You can, and then there are kind of interesting things with host families, which you can do in terms of paying folks, paying for families that are taking care of youth. And all kinds of other things that, again, in the past, HUD didn't allow in terms of security deposits, damages, cleaning supplies. So again, just creative and interesting ways to spend your money that HUD hasn't allowed you to do in the past or just started to do last year. Hey, Katie, do you have a question?
Hi. Oh, I just wanted to mention one thing. I'm sorry, Liz. So for the YHDP folks, a lot of these special activities were included in last year's NOFO too. So I just want to remind folks that last year was just the YHDP rapid rehousing and the YHDP diversion rapid exit projects that did replacement projects, because a lot of this really relates to rapid rehousing. But as
Yep.
Liz said, take a look and let us know if you're interested.
Yep, thanks, Katie. That's important because those were the relevant projects. Great. And again, just other ways, cost of the internet, more creative, interesting ways you can spend your money, rental arrears, utility arrears, etc. Legal fees, past driving fees. What else is interesting here? 36 months of rapid rehousing rental assistance, as Katie was talking about, more related to rapid rehousing and all the things you're going to do. So I'm not going to read through this, but please, again, if you're a rapid rehousing, if you're a YHDP project interested in this, this feels applicable. I think I have it in the last slide. Take a look. We actually have another information packet we put together last year. Take a look at it, reach out to me. We're going to reach out to Katie, see if it works. And it may not work. We're really just letting folks know that this is an option that might work for you. So again, that link below has a couple pages of eligible activities and what this is about. And again, my caveat that what this was about last year, we think it's going to be similar. The NOFO indicated it was similar. eSNAPs could be change up, but we'll let you know if that happens. And you're going to contact us, contact Katie, and we'll just keep talking. Anything on YHDP? I'm looking at the chat. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything.
Sasha, do you have a moment?
Oh, is somebody asking? Okay. Was there a question?
Who is in charge of the CSPG extra funds?
I'm sorry. Who's in charge of? I'm plugging in a computer. I'm sorry, I'm charging a computer. Well, I missed that question. Who's in charge of? No. All right, we lost the question, but if it comes back, you'll tell me.
Okay, to answer someone else's question that's in the chat, I know it's not YHCP.
Oh, it's okay.
Is if you are merging or consolidating grants, yes, you have to do both grants, both renewal grants. So you have to apply for both. One will just say it's a surviving grant, and the other one is terminating.
Great. All right, I'm going to move on. So this applies to a bunch of you, but not all of you. So if you are not in a consolidated plan area, I apologize. I'm not a barking dog. This DOH is in charge of making sure that you're following and are in compliance with the consolidated plan. And so you need to fill out a form. I always call them the long forms. So those of you who have done it in the past, there is a link to that. And Miles is currently putting together the projects that do that every year. So if you're not sure if you're one, we will send in the next couple of days, we will send you an email, but we need those forms back soon. And just so you know, so then Steve DeLella helps us, the commissioner needs to sign something. And again, everything now, as far as we know, is due September 30th, which is why we're moving along. So their form is there, but folks that this is applicable to will get an email, but I just wanted to get everyone thinking about it now, sooner rather than later. So these are guides and resources. They are last year's guides and resources, because that's all we've got. So we will update this. We'll update our website. We'll send you guys an email as soon as eSNAPs is out, as soon as all the instructions are available. Questions? No, we've been answering them, but
I have just wanted to notify, we've had people had issues logging to eSNAPs the last few days. If in some cases one browser, the web browser, is not working, try another different web browser, because sometimes this is a web browser issue. Although yesterday, grant you, eSNAPs, I think it was down completely, because I tried all different browsers and got the same issue, but sometimes I think it's a browser issue. So it's if you're having issues, try that first to see if that resolves it.
great. Anything else? All right. So timeline, I know it's not fun, but we're going to try to get get these done within a week from when eSnaps opens. Please try to have, if you can have more than one person complete this. As we mentioned, a lot of people, and I'm not saying it's the norm. I know some people have to make changes and your match changed, or now you have an indirect rate. I get that it can be hard, but I really want to say the norm is that you can keep most sections the same, and it should hopefully not be a huge burden to complete these. And we are around to answer any questions you guys have. And then the process is that you get them to us, and we'll send this out by email. I'm just letting you know ahead of time for those of you who are new. We'll let you know when the deadline is. You will PDF, you will do the eSnaps, you'll PDF it, we'll review it, and hopefully say yes, submit it in eSnaps. So we're trying to move really quickly this year. It's my next slide, I think, where we tell people this is our contact information. If you're sending us through the Gmail a question or a comment, let us know that it's a renewal application question, comment, or your application's there so we can move even faster. You can contact any of us, and we really will get back to you as soon as we can, as quickly. Oops, I don't want that one yet. As quickly as we can. But please, just reminders, sign up for boss emails if you don't get them already, and have your colleagues get them. I know people are on vacation and go away, but the last couple of years we've had issues where no one can access eSnaps or people aren't getting our emails. So please, we don't want to we don't mind chasing people, but we have to make sure that you get your applications in, because that's how you get your funding. I'm going to do one last unrelated reminder. So questions, comments, concerns?
I'm just going to say one other thing, just thinking about it. For those that have merger grants that merged last year, which was 2 grants, I know basically you're rewriting the whole application because there's no way there's no changes, I don't think. You could do those last and do all the other ones first. And if this comes past a week, because you have to do a lot of edits, because the narrative has to change and everything else. Yeah, that's more understandable because that's sort of like a rewrite. But all the regular projects, they should be a lot faster to do.
Great. And also, Miles, early on, we went through the slides on doing your applicant profile. A couple things. If you are a sub-recipient from DOH or DMIS, you don't have to do that. You have Lisa Callahan and all kinds of talented people at DMIS and DOH who've already spent a lot of time actually updating the applicant profile already. So about half of you don't need to listen to this, but the other half of you can do your applicant profile right now. So if you're thinking, how can I cut to the chase? What can I do now? You can go ahead and get into eSnaps. You can get moving on your applicant profile, and you can make sure that you're not the only person who has access to eSnaps, right? That other people in your agency could be completing the application if you are not able to do so. All right, I'm going to do one unrelated update, and then I'll ask for questions again. Just a shameless reminder, shameless advertising, that there is a new RFP out. So as you know, this year, there really are like 3 NOFOs out, right? We have the regular one, which we just talked about for the renewals. Then we have what is now being called the SNOFO, the supplemental NOFO. And then that has 2 components, one rural, but only for Litchfield County. And then the other is the unsheltered project apps that we are accepting. So I just want to make sure, hopefully people have seen the emails. We've advertised in a lot of places. If you don't know anything about this, hop on the BOSS website, check it out. If you have questions, please call me, but they're due soon. They're due on the 17th. And if you already did an application for the regular NOFO, for the regular new projects, we have a shortened version so that if you wanted to apply to this for the same project, you actually answer just a few questions and it's much simpler. And we have tried to do kind of a cut to the chase in ZenGen where the applications are done. I think it's pretty user friendly. So I'm just throwing this out there. Always want to make sure everybody knows about all the funding opportunities available through BOSS. That's all she wrote. That's all we got. Anybody, anything else? Questions, comments? Oh, we're done. Yeah, that was it.
Well, on the website, the renewal grant project list is there. I don't see the GIW, so we'll add the GIW shortly. But but you should be good to go when eSnaps is up and running.
Yeah, we don't know. Obviously, the moment we know when eSnaps is up and running, we will reach out to you. HUD actually has a webinar this afternoon, so I am sure we will all be asking HUD that at 2:30 today when eSnaps is opening. But we appreciate you joining us. It's nice to see familiar faces, new faces. We're really here to just get everybody through this, get the applications in without too much pain. I know there's a lot going on all at once at Boss, so we're sorry the timing is not fantastic. We're keeping everybody really busy. But thank you. And just reach out with any questions. There are no silly questions. We're happy to answer them.
If there's any changes in the applications, once they come live, we'll put out an email highlighting the changes.
Yep.
and instructions towards the change if the changes really needs instructions for it. So you won't be completely surprised. I mean, unless you open it up before we know about it, but yeah, you should not be fully surprised if there's any changes.
Yeah.
Yes, we wish HUD would release everything at the same time instead of dragging us out.
All right. Thank you so much for your afternoon. Be well, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you. Miles, I think you can stop the recording.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do a stop share.